Hey guys, I'm Randy Unger, and it's a very special edition of Unger the Radar, where we talk all things film and TV. And for purposes of tonight, we are going to be speaking about a very special podcast. That podcast is the Media Path podcast, and it is hosted by radio producer, filmmaker Louise Palanker and former weather reporter Fritz Coleman. I want to thank you guys for taking the time tonight. Welcome to the show.
So happy to be with you, Randy. Thanks for inviting us.
Anytime.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Happy holidays in advance, by the way.
Thank you.
So guys, I listened to some of the podcast last night, and the chemistry is undeniable. It's really strong. Tell everybody about the podcast and how you guys met initially.
Weezy?
We met many years ago when Fritz was putting on a one-man play at a very small theater. So it was very easy to speak with the performer afterwards. You can actually speak to him during the play, you know. I have a couple of points of yes. And so my friend and I were talking to him afterwards, and I thought it would make a good TV special, and we started talking about projects and things. And then the next thing I knew, we were working together because we just really got along and had a lot of similar interests.
Okay. What was the show, by the way?
When I sort of broadened out my stand-up career, and I did a series of 4 one-person shows. These were stand-up, but I call them single topic monologues, wherein they were funny, not every second. Sometimes we try to be poignant, but they were about one thing. My first one was called It's Me, Dad, which was the one that Weezy was talking about, where I established this fantasy den where I had, and this is a true story actually, I had been to my father's funeral. And I had these bittersweet thoughts about it because with all the testimonials that went on at my dad's funeral, I was astonished at how little I knew about his life. I was learning things at his funeral that some of his friends were imparting, and that made me uncomfortable. And I made a promise to myself at that point that I would never allow that to happen with my children. So I decided to start to make notes and write down everything in my life that had happened to that point, good and bad. My dad's struggle with alcoholism, my divorce from the boys. I didn't have my daughter at that time, divorced from the boy's mom, and just was as frank as I could be. They were too young at the time. They were 7 and 5. So what I was going to do is record this on a VHS tape and put it in a safe deposit box. And when they were 18 years old, they could watch this thing and learn about their father. So in the event of the early demise of their father, they would know everything they needed to know and there'd be no secrets. So I started to describe this concept to my friends, and they said that would make a spectacular one-person presentation on stage. So I thought that's a great idea. So the theater she's talking about was what we call an equity waiver theater. It was a little 60-seat theater in North Hollywood, California, and I did it there for a year and workshopped it and worked it all out. And then eventually public television in Los Angeles bought it, KCET, and they aired it on as a fundraising tool on Father's Day every day for 7 years in a row. So it was a lot of fun. The second show I did was called The Reception, which was a narration of an imaginary wedding reception. And the conceit was I was in front of a giant screen with 700 high definition photographs behind me. And this wedding reception played out in still photographs. And we actually cast this thing with actors and everything else. And so the only thing that was missing was the movement between the pictures. And Weezy was the producer of that show. We took it all over Southern California, had a great time. My third one was a show called Tonight at 11, which was me narrating the news business at the 11 o'clock news. And then the last one I did was called Defying Gravity, which was just about me being old. And so anyway, our connection is Weezy was really instrumental in my first 2 one-person shows. And we've just been friends for a really long time. And we thought making this podcast would be just an extension of our friendship. We see eye to eye on movies and books and media in general. And this is just sort of a continuation of that conversation, but inviting the general public to come in and be with us. And Wheezy is a great producer and has had great experience in the podcasting world. She's been in 4 or 5 podcasts. So I'm just along for the ride and having a great time.
That's excellent. I love hearing that. I love hearing about your relationship. It's just it seems so effortless. But I am curious, are there any challenges to your working relationship?
Fritz and I, we do not have any challenges in terms of our working. We have very low expectations of each other. And so there's never any disappointment. We just kind of have always, I think even during producing the plays, I think there was one argument. So yeah, we just have a very easygoing, we get each other and we don't.
We had an immediate friendship and we've had it for 35 years.
Yeah. And we allow each other a lot of space. If, we're very comfortable around each other. So other people can kind of like lose it. And we just sort of look at each other like, okay, we'll get through this. Yeah. So I try to make sure that what we have in place in the staff and the staffing of this show is complementing our weaknesses so that it's very professional. We have an engineer, we have a tech team, we have someone mixing the sound, we have a webmaster. As you know, a podcast requires someone to wear about 70 hats, and I can wear about 37 of those. And Fritz can wear, about 30 of those. So we're very prepared.
Also, what I will say, Randy, is that we're also a YouTube podcast. And Wheezy is a documentary filmmaker. So her job isn't even done when we're finished recording the podcast. She post-produces the show and adds all the great visual elements to it so that it's compelling on YouTube as well. So she has to do 2 or 3 times as much work as everybody else has to do.
But what we try to do is just be prepared. We have guests. So we've done our research as you have today. We're prepared to have an interesting conversation. And we really, once you're really prepared, when you're performing, you can just enjoy the hell out of it.
That's it.
The key to anything in life is just being prepared. Remember that day you walked into school and you had your homework? And you're like, oh, class is going to be fun today because I'm ready. And those days when you weren't, it was your heart would, yeah. So,
but the big the issue in podcasting, Randy, is the ever-present dark cloud is carving yourself out of the pack. I think the most recent figure is there are 150,000 podcasts in America, and trying to make yourself heard in that context is a slow process, a slow building process.
It's really it's an ocean of voices, and it is sometimes you get lost in that sea of madness. But I do my best. I do the best I can, and that's really all I can do. So
that's a healthy way to look at it. We're a little more obsessive than you are. And
how do you guys go about picking your topics?
Well, we kind of, when we began, we kind of carved out already what our interests were, and then we pick guests sort of that fit within those frameworks. And then if I sense that it wouldn't be a good fit for Fritz, it's going to be a no. So it has to be a good fit for both of us. But we're at a point now where we're being approached, and we do have a talent coordinator named Sharon Bellio who works for the Tim Conway Jr. show, and we do send her wish lists of who we'd love. When we hear that someone has a new book out, oh, I'd love to talk to this person, we do send her lists. But for the most part, it's people approaching us who would like to be on the show. That's
great. And also a very good resource, I'm just going to throw it out there, IMDb Pro. If you're ever in the mood to interview talent in the film and TV world, IMDb Pro is excellent at finding.
Is that a subscriber-based thing? Or
it is. It's the Internet Movie Database, and basically the Pro is a paid subscription. But
do you get? Does that drill down on information you get on the store, like Publicis and all that kind of thing?
Yeah, you get all that information once you're a member, and all the Publicist information pops up.
Maybe we need to do that, Wheezy.
Oh, I think that Sharon is all over that. I do have IMDb Pro. I've never used it for that purpose. That's new. That's a new tip for me. So
Yeah.
But I think that's where Sharon comes in. That's one of her secrets, probably. Is.
And just mentioning that, I think IMDb should sponsor this show. I think is a good idea.
That would be awesome.
There you go.
Maybe in the future.
No,
we'll see.
I need Pro because I use it to research the guests that are coming on. Pro gives you a lot of fun stuff, like the trivia questions, Fritz. Sometimes I get those from.
No, those are the best. I love those.
Yeah.
IMDb's great.
Especially when you know more than the star does about his own past.
It's happened more than once. That's true. So yeah, you guys, you cover it all pretty much, everything in pop culture. Fritz, is there a particular aspect of pop culture that you gravitate towards the most?
Well, I actually, the truth is we probably gravitate toward the same basic topics. We're big music fans, going back to me a little bit earlier than Wheezy. I like 50s and 60s rhythm and blues. We love everything having to do with pop music because I was a disc jockey for 15 years. Right. Wheezy owned her own radio company, and we've both been in the middle of and exposed to the music industry for a long time. So if we can get a star, particularly one that we really looked up to, we had Felix Cavalieri from the Young Rascals on recently. 2 weeks ago, we had John Sebastian, which, of the Loving Spoonful, was one of the great treats of our whole podcast. We had Gary Puckett of the Union Gap, and I love the old school music stories, the behind the scenes music stories. We had the guy that produced The Wrecking Crew, which is the story about the great Los Angeles session musicians that played on probably 85% of the pop music hits of the 70s. So we've had some real fun. And we also love politics. We had Adam Schiff on. He was wonderful when his book was out. And we love to cover anything. But I think I don't want to speak for Wheezy, but I think one of my fun topics is music, because I'm sort of a student of several genres of music.
Yeah, Fritz, he loves music the best. I probably split between, we love documentaries. We love what I call or what Fritz calls baby boomer nirvana. So all the child stars that we grew up watching, we've had a lot of child stars from our childhood. People love that because they just want to know that they're okay. Right. Like, is everybody okay? And so we dip into that. And we also, we really love movies, and we love film, and we love politics, and we both love books. So if it's anybody from any of those fields who has written a book, and we get to read the book and then ask them all the questions that any reader would get to ask, we just consider that to be an honor.
I love that.
And I'll tell you that's where the title came from, Randy, Media Path, because what we do at the top of each show, if you've listened, the first 5 or 8 minutes, Wheezy and I are making suggestions about things people might enjoy watching. For instance, last week, I did a movie about racism in Mobile, Alabama. There are 2 great documentaries on Netflix about it right now called Descendant. And the basis for the movie is the last slave ship to enter U.S. waters called the Cotilda, which was like in 1850. It was really fascinating. And then she did a couple of great shows. And we don't review them. We just call them to people's attention and say, listen, you might really enjoy this. If we have a snarky comment about them or two, we'll do that. But it's not about a review. It's about giving people ideas for stuff they may find along the media path.
Right. Just a spotlight on quality film.
Exactly.
I respect that for sure. Do you guys ever get starstruck? I mean, I do, but I keep it down, kind of hidden when I'm interviewing certain personalities. Do you guys get starstruck at all?
I think that's a good question. I think since we both have had careers in media for so long, I mean, Fritz worked at NBC, like who didn't walk those halls? I mean, everybody that was ever on the Tonight Show could have been walking with Fritz to the commissary. He's been around everybody. My career at Premier Radio and writing for Rick Dees, I've already interviewed everybody. So, and the newer stars on the horizon, I probably don't know who they are. So I would.
I think the most starstruck, because there's no other way to describe both of our reactions, was having Adam Schiff on, because this was shortly after he had been a prosecutor in one of the Trump impeachment trials, and he had a book out, and he was like the topic of conversation on the media. So he was really, I think it was one of the pinnacles of his career. So I don't know if you call it starstruck, but we were most energetic about that interview because
we were nervous. I was nervous because we were getting a few minutes to talk to Representative Schiff, and so I carved out my questions in advance and I probably read them quite robotically, and it wasn't exactly conversational. But yeah, I would say I would get them the most nervous around politicians.
And then in the middle of Adam Schiff's interview, this buzzer goes off. It sounded like a fire alarm. And he says, "Oh, I got to go down on the floor and cast a vote." So that's how he ended. It was really cool.
All right. That's interesting. I love that. I love, again, the behind the scenes stories. That's the real meat of
I love
those interactions. I love that. What do you hope audiences take away from MediaPath?
Well, we hope that we're going to enlighten boomers as to all that's available. I think people our age can be a little bit limited in what they attempt to access because they don't want that frustration. You know, they go from zero to extremely frustrated very quickly if they're trying to access a podcast or HBO Max or, or what have you. And so we want people to know it's not that difficult. If something interests you, the thing around the corner that's similar that you also may like, you can access that. Like, you don't have to hit that wall where you need to call your grandson and have him come over so that you can watch this movie. We just want to help people move a little bit further along towards this just absolute potpourri of entertainment and information that awaits each of us.
It's the infotainment that I love, and that's what I am continually try to achieve with every episode of my show.
I love that.
Just enlighten people, but at the same time make it kind of fun and casual. That's a great.
Well, your passion is films.
Yes.
So you interview the stars and the producers and viewers of films and get their opinions about them.
Basically, my show consists of two things. It's basically a regular episode, which is 2 movie reviews with a panel discussion with other critics. And then there's an interview episode, which is what we're doing right now. And then the third thing, actually, which I don't do often, but is a feature-length commentary. So basically we would sync up the movie, they'd press play, and then I would record a commentary with other critics, and they would sync that up with the movie.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's
So what over the last, say, 6 months, what has been your favorite release?
Wow. I think I'm torn. There's 2 movies that are vying for the top spot. There's a fantasy sci-fi film called Everything Everywhere All at Once, starring Michelle Yeoh. And there's another film called Marcel the Shell with Shoes On, which is basically...
Wow, that sounds cool. Where is that?
That is basically... It's no, it was in theaters. It had a limited release. I don't think it's in theaters anymore, but it's basically like live action animation about a shell who could talk and tries to find his lost family. It's a very cute film. So those 2 films are one of those is going to be number 1 for me.
Did you like Amsterdam?
I did not see that, actually. But
it's interesting. You spend the first 2/3 of the movie trying to figure out what it's about, and then the last third it's explained to you, and you go, "Oh yeah." But the acting was spectacular.
Okay. Well, you should know that I have made a film.
Oh yeah, Cow Sills, correct?
Right.
Okay.
It's on Prime.
Yeah, tell my audience about that a little bit.
You can get it on Prime. It's called Family Band: The Cow Sills Story, and it's a documentary about the real life inspiration for the Partridge Family. Okay. There was a real family that they were quite popular for about 5 years, and then their star burned out just as the Partridge Family was taking off. And so, with all these kids so talented, the question was for me, since they were my favorite band, what happened? And so I kind of went in search of that and made a film about it.
It's a beautiful story. It's a great story about America and about the music industry. And there's some similarities with the arc of the Jackson family, where, the antagonist is the father, Okay. And it's really beautifully done. I'm really proud of Louise. She did a great job on that thing.
Great.
It started out on Showtime and now it's on Amazon Prime.
Okay, I'm going to definitely look for that now. Awesome.
I would love for you to make a commentary that where you talk alongside. This is crap. What
That's
was
a great idea.
doing?
That is actually an excellent idea, Louise. Yeah, you can come on for that.
Okay.
We'll sit and record the commentary. I love it.
Okay, awesome. I would love that.
And that kind of segues into my next question. Are there any projects, any other things you're working on now, guys, that you can talk about? Fritz?
Well, I just recorded a 1-hour comedy special at the El Portal Theater in North Hollywood, and I'm trying to sell it. Okay. And I'd like to sell it to a streamer. Me and 7,000 other comedians are trying to sell product to a streamer, right. But I'd like to do it. It's fun for me. And we're trying to stir up some interest in it. So I hope I have some good news about that soon. But it's fun. I continue to do stand-up, and that's my love. And now that I'm retired, I can give it a little more force than I could when a job kept getting in the way, if you know what I mean.
Gotcha. I've been thinking of doing improv myself, actually.
No matter what, I just had this discussion with somebody like yesterday. No matter what, we did it in our podcast,
it was
right?
Sean.
We were
Sean was talking about
it. Who is really wonderful. She's a stand-up, and she started in improv and worked with the Groundlings. And Kathy Griffin was her instructor, and she worked with Will Ferrell and all these wonderful people. And she brought up a great point. She said, no matter what career you're in your life, improv will help you have confidence and not be thrown by any eventuality that happens. And that's a great idea. If you have to do speeches in front of a corporation or anything, it's a wonderful thing to do. And just to massage your brain, you ought to try it. Yeah. What city are you in?
I'm sorry? I'm in New York.
Oh, okay. Well, you probably have lots of improv groups.
Yeah, my friend actually turned me on to it. He's in finance, and he said, like you said, it could be you could be in any field. It'll benefit you. So that's all. Louise, do you have any experience with improv yourself, comedy?
Yeah, I do. Fritz, in fact, conflated my story with Sean's. My teacher was Kathy Griffin.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, and
I'm elderly, so I blew that. Sorry.
What I love, it was, we were all talking, and I love improv. My problem with improv, I moved from improv to stand-up, was that I didn't want to have to know people. And so I'm teasing, but with improv, if you're going to do that, you work within that, within that troupe or within that company, and you work your way up and everything. And what I loved about stand-up was that it's like sort of like golf, where you can just sort of learn it and go out on the golf course at night at dusk. No one else has to be there. But with stand-up, you can go to an open mic, sign up, and you can go and perform. And there's no one telling you can't. Right. And with improv, you have to work with other people and get good together. Right. So I really kind of was running a company, and I wasn't able to just pursue improv the way what was required to get good at it. So I sort of started just doing open mics and doing stand-up. And now I find that podcasting is a good outlet for me.
Guys, I give you so much respect for going in front of an audience of 100 people, maybe more, and just basically giving a monologue. That takes guts. And
when it's going well, it is the greatest. I always explain it. It's like nude hang gliding. It's the freest experience you ever have. But when it's going bad, it's the greatest act of self-destruction you can ever go through.
Well, Fritz he's the master. He's the master of stand-up. He is really an accomplished. He's been on the Tonight Show a number of times, and his stand-up specials and his one-man plays are extremely brilliant, and they're beyond funny. They make you feel and think and laugh and cry. So he's the pro.
Thank you.
That's great. Now, since this is a movie show, are there any other films in theaters now or coming out next year that you guys are looking forward to seeing?
I want to see The Fabelmans. I haven't. I think that's something that
you'll like. That it will resonate with you more than it was me.
Right.
It's
so that's
about a Jewish upbringing, and it's wonderful.
Really,
so that's next on my list. What about you, Fritz?
I want to see Babylon. Have you seen Babylon, Randy?
No, not yet. That's on my list for sure. But there's actually 2 films aside from Babylon. The Whale with Brendan
Yeah,
Fraser.
that's the one they're talking about. What's his name's greatest acting of his career in that.
Brendan Fraser's probably
Fraser.
getting an Oscar nomination for sure. So I'm excited to see that.
Great.
And, it's a bit of, it's obviously popcorn fare, but the new Avatar, I'm going to see it this weekend, just for some visual
Yeah, I want to see
stimulation.
that too.
Yeah.
My favorite thing to do is books into movies. And that's like part of the media path is where, you experience one thing and it invites you to experience the next thing. And so I love reading books in advance of the movies. And so recently I would say for fans of that experience, you crawdads, read the book. It's so beautiful.
Yeah.
And I love the movie. I never expect the movie to be exactly like the book. They're two different mediums. So I was happy.
Sometimes something gets lost in translation or something is, enhanced in translation. But
they're different mediums. And so different differences are required to capture your attention.
Of course. So guys, in our last couple minutes, just tell everybody, how can they listen to MediaPath, the podcast?
You would go into your browsing machine and you would pull out your keyboard and type MediaPath podcast.
Yes.
And you're going to find all kinds of different things, but don't get confused because any of them will play the podcast for you. Sometimes people feel like, oh, I don't know which one to click. Which one is it? It's all of them. So, we make podcasts available on a multitude of platforms. So wherever you want to listen, even just go to mediapathpodcast.com, click play. It will start playing on your computer, or you could take it with you on your phone, put it on Bluetooth on your Bluetooth speaker or in your car. Or you could just good old fashioned go to YouTube and type MediaPath podcast and then look for our channel, not an individual episode. If you find our channel, you'll see a little circle. That's the channel. And then you'll see all of them. You can just pick one out. They're not in any kind of order. They're all different. They're all unique. They're all just separate conversations. Pick one that interests you and enjoy.
So one week it'll be at books. The next week it'll be politics. And then so it's unpredictable, basically.
Exactly.
Well, it's really we make recommendations, and those could be books or movies or shows. Our guest is whoever our guest is, and it could be a guest that's written a book and is also a singer and has also been in on Broadway. So it's the media path of that person. Whatever they came to talk about is what we'll explore.
The ideal would be the EGOT guest.
Oh man, John Legend, man. Yeah. Or Rita. Yep.
Yes, of course. Sneak peek into next week's episode. Who do you have coming?
So it's going to be an interesting one because we had on a guy named Bruce Belland. He is a member of the Four Preps, and they were he calls them the original boy band. This guy is 86 years old, and he's obsessed. He's like a fanboy of the Mills Brothers. And so it turns out that I know the Mills Brothers. They've all passed, but I know there's one of their son, Donald's son, John. And Bruce is very excited to meet John, has a billion questions lined up for him. So we're going to be letting Bruce do a lot of that interview and just fanboy out and ask all of his Mills brother related questions. And we'll have a conversation about vocal harmonies. They both know a ton about that, and it's an obsession of mine. So it should be a fun one.
We also have a couple of student filmmakers, right? Is that next week?
Oh.
The two guys, the one that you trained at Boys and Girls Club, and then they have a film out now?
I think that'll be the following week.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Great, guys. Well, awesome
As you can see, Randy, I'm just along for the
ride. Any other projects you want to mention while I have you?
Nope. This is an interesting conversation. You ask good questions, and I can't wait to hear your other episodes.
Of course. Thank you. Louise and Fritz, thank you so much for your time tonight. This was amazing.
We appreciate being invited, Randy. Thank you so much.
It's great to meet people in a similar field. And I want to wish you and your families a very happy holiday season.
Well, you're really good at this, Randy. We enjoyed talking with you.
Good job.
Thanks, guys.